What if, for 12 hours, you found yourself in a world that desperately wanted you to stay put? A world where the simple act of sliding a plate across a table suddenly felt like pushing a car through wet cement. This isn't some philosophical question. This is a question of physics. For the next 12 hours, the coefficient of friction for everything everywhere has just doubled. And our world, the one built on the blissful assumption of things moving smoothly, is about to get very, very weird. Let's follow Alara, a seismologist who, at this precise moment, is having a profoundly difficult time getting out of bed. The fabric of her cotton sheet seems to have developed a sudden, clingy personality. Each movement is a struggle, a tiny battle against a newly stubborn reality. Throwing the duvet off feels less like a morning ritual and more like wrestling an oddly affectionate octopus. Finally free, she discovers her slippers now grip the wooden floor with the tenacity of a panicked gecko. The simple shuffle to the kitchen becomes a deliberate, high-traction march. At first, it's just a series of baffling, low-grade annoyances. The coffee bean grinder whines, its motor straining against the doubled resistance of its own parts, producing a coarse, uneven powder. The drawer containing the spoons opens with a shuddering groan. Spreading butter on toast becomes an act of sheer will, like trying to plaster a wall with a brick. Alara, a woman who understands immense geological forces, is momentarily defeated by a dairy product. But the true nature of this new world reveals itself when she tries to leave for work. Turning the key in her car's ignition requires a surprising amount of torque. The engine turns over, but it sounds wrong. It's a strained, guttural sound, the noise of a machine fighting itself. Every piston scraping against a cylinder wall, every gear meshing, every belt turning is now generating twice the friction and therefore twice the heat. The temperature gauge begins to climb with alarming speed. She pulls out of her driveway. The moment her tires, now possessing the grip of superglue, meet the asphalt, the car lurches. The power steering feels like it's failed. Worse, the first time she touches the brakes, the car doesn't slow down. It stops instantly. The screech of rubber is replaced by a dead, solid thump as the brake pads clamp onto the discs with twice their intended force. Her seatbelt, also subject to the new rules, locks with the unforgiving force of a guillotine. This is Hour 1, the Great Slowdown. Across the globe, the symphony of morning commutes dissolves into a cacophony of failing machines. Cars overheat and seize. Highways become museums of stationary vehicles, their engines ticking and steaming in the morning light. A train leaving a station requires so much energy to overcome the doubled friction of its wheels on the track that it causes a localized power brownout. In the air, things are even more dramatic. A passenger jet is thundering down a runway for takeoff. Air, we forget, is a fluid, and moving through it creates drag, which is a form of friction. That drag has just doubled. The engines are screaming at maximum thrust, but the plane feels like it's trying to take off through an atmosphere of invisible molasses. It burns through an impossible amount of fuel just to reach rotation speed, lifting off the runway with only meters to spare, climbing sluggishly into a sky that is suddenly hostile. By Hour 3, the consequences have escalated from mechanical to systemic. Think about our power grid. It relies on massive turbines, steam, wind, or water, spinning at incredible speeds. These turbines rest on bearings designed to be as close to frictionless as possible. But now, that close to isn't close enough. Friction has doubled, and the waste product of friction is heat. Colossal amounts of it. Power plants are now giant, unintentional ovens. Automated safety systems, detecting critical overheating, begin to take plants offline one by one. The lights begin to flicker. Alara, having abandoned her car, is walking, and it is exhausting. Every step is a chore. The simple act of bending a knee, the slide of cartilage in her joints, is now met with more resistance. But the real problem is happening inside her. Her heart is a pump, pushing blood through thousands of kilometers of arteries, veins, and capillaries. Blood isn't a frictionless fluid. It has viscosity. The friction of blood cells dragging along vessel walls has doubled. To maintain blood pressure, her heart has to work twice as hard. For everyone on Earth, it's like their entire cardiovascular system is suddenly trying to pump catch-up. People feel winded, dizzy. Hospitals see a surge of patients with chest pains and shortness of breath, their bodies struggling against an invisible internal enemy. By hour 6, the planet itself is starting to react. The atmosphere, that vast ocean of air we live beneath, is grinding to a halt. Wind is just air moving from high pressure to low pressure, a process constantly fighting the friction of that air moving over the surface, over mountains, forests, oceans, and cities. With that friction doubled, the winds are dying. The great jet streams that circle the globe falter. Weather patterns, which are supposed to move, just stop. A massive storm system that was supposed to drift across the Indian Ocean now sits in place, dumping trillions of liters of rain on one location, causing catastrophic flooding. In industrial centers, smoke from factories, no longer dispersed by wind, hangs in a thick, choking blanket, creating instant toxic smog. The planet has lost its ability to exhale. Alara finally makes it to her office at the Geological Survey, running on emergency power. Her colleagues are huddled around monitors, looking not at the ground, but at the sky. Weather satellites are showing a world becoming unnervingly still, but Alara is a seismologist. She studies the slow grinding dance of tectonic plates, and she has a sudden, terrifying thought. The Earth's crust isn't a single solid shell. It's a cracked eggshell of massive plates floating on a sea of molten rock. They move, but not smoothly. They stick. The friction between, say, the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate is what holds the San Andreas Fault in place. For centuries, stress builds up along these fault lines, like coiling a spring. Earthquakes happen when the stress finally overcomes the friction and the plates slip, releasing that energy in a violent snap. For the last 6 hours, the force holding those plates in place, the friction, has been doubled. It's like the universe has put a giant planetary doorstop under every fault line on Earth. The stress is still building, the spring is still coiling, but the release is being artificially prevented. The pressure is mounting to an unimaginable degree. This is the halfway point. 6 more hours of this planetary lockdown. 6 more hours of failing grids, stalled weather, and overstressed hearts. 6 more hours of pressure building in the silent, grinding darkness of the Earth's crust. Hour 12 arrives, and just as suddenly as it began, it's over. The coefficient of friction for everything on Earth snaps back to normal. For a moment, there is only relief. The air feels crisp and clean as the wind, suddenly unleashed, begins to blow again. A rolling office chair that had been immovable now glides freely. The strange tension in everyone's bodies evaporates as their hearts no longer have to fight a losing battle. A pilot on that struggling passenger jet, which had been burning fuel at an unsustainable rate, feels the aircraft surge forward as if a giant hand has let it go. It feels like a reprieve. It lasts for about 90 seconds. Then the planet shudders. In her lab, every seismograph on every screen on every continent goes completely vertical. It's not one earthquake, it's all of them. At once, it's the Great Unsticking. Every fault line that had been pushed past its breaking point but held in check by the artificial friction now lets go simultaneously. The San Andreas Fault doesn't just slip, it ruptures along its entire length. The Ring of Fire, a chain of volcanoes and fault lines around the Pacific, ignites in a global cascade. Tokyo, Santiago, Los Angeles, Jakarta, all are hit by quakes of a magnitude never before recorded. It's as if the planet is exhaling 1,000 years of geologic tension in a single catastrophic breath. The world didn't end because things got stuck. It ended because they became unstuck all at once. The 12 hours of double friction were not the disaster. They were the tightening of the string on a planetary crossbow. The return to normal was the release. In the aftermath, as the survivors crawl out into a reshaped world, they would look back at those 12 bizarre hours. They'd remember the comical difficulty of putting on socks, the absurdity of wrestling with a butter knife. They would remember it as a quiet, strange, and deeply tiring day. A day when the universe decided to play a practical joke. But we would understand that friction isn't just a force that slows things down. It's not an inconvenience. It's the great regulator. It's the moderator. The force that allows for control, for stability, for the gradual release of energy. It's the silent, tireless force that keeps our coffee in the mug, our continents from playing bumper cars, and our world from shaking itself to pieces. It's the cosmic glue holding everything together just enough. And for that, we should probably be grateful it doesn't get any wild ideas.